a service of CNC Worldwide.
The Daily is a service of CNC and Jib Jab. Greetings, I'm Bud Lowell. Your full AccuWeather forecast is always on top here on your CNC local page. Kodak wants to offer more than $8.8 million in bonuses to its top executives as an incentive for getting the company out of bankruptcy. The company filed papers in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York seeking permission to set up what it calls the Emergence Performance Plan. It would authorize incentive payments to 15 members of Kodak's leadership team. They're people who, according to the court filing, have the ability to directly influence the debtor's business operations and creditor recovery. How much they get under the plan depends on how much Kodak's unsecured creditors recover once the company is reorganized. Any payments they get will be in cash and in Kodak stock. Each of the 15 executives and CEO Antonio Perez has been given a target award. The actual amount paid will range from 0 to 200% above that target. It depends on how well the person does in getting the creditors their money back. To get any payout, the creditors have to recover at least 10% of what they're owed by Kodak. If creditors recover 30%, the executives get the target payment. And if they do better than 30%, they can make more than their target. A group opposed to the town of Arundecoit's tougher boating law has filed suit against the town in state Supreme Court, and they're out to overturn the law that requires them to keep at least 300 feet away from shore in the area of Lake Ontario between the Arundecoit Bay Outlet and 186 Lake Bluff Road. Boats are prohibited from anchoring or mooring together or drifting close to shore together in that area. This law was adopted in the spring after some of the homeowners along Arundecoit's Hot Dog Row complained of day-long parties offshore from their properties and from the popular lakeshore bar Marge's. The landowners said loud music, public drinking, and people trespassing on their private beaches were ruining their quality of life. Restore Public Water Rights in Rochester, LLC, grew out of a Facebook page started by boaters opposed to the restrictions. They retained environmental attorney Alan Knopf of Rochester to represent them.
We really feel this is a privatization of public resources. The land under the water is held in trust for the public. The waters of Lake Ontario are for the public to navigate. And because of a few people and complaining, the town has restricted enjoyment of our natural resources for the general public. And the town already has laws that address things like noise and public nuisances. And it seemed like most of the problems coming from a bar Marge's that has been there for a long time, and from their patrons being on the beach. So the whole thing doesn't really make sense to us.
Now, we've talked to the supervisor a couple of times about this in the past weeks, and she says they can regulate the navigation out to 1,200 or 1,300 feet from shore, if I recall. Do you say that basically that the state law doesn't allow them to do that?
The state law is written, it gives the town certain rights to regulate within 1,500 feet of shore, but in the first place to do that, they've got to follow the proper procedures, which did not happen. And then the second point is they can only regulate what the law allows, and in this case, the law only allows regulation of anchoring and mooring, doesn't allow regulation of tying boats or drifting boats, and certainly doesn't allow prohibition of anchoring and mooring.
And attorney Alan Knopf says there's a constitutional issue here as well. He says boaters have freedom to assemble on the water just as their right to assembly on land is constitutionally protected. The suit has a preliminary hearing before Justice Evelyn Frazee on August 23rd. After that, it's up to her and the higher courts, possibly, to decide where the line gets drawn between the rights of boaters and of landowners along the Lake Ontario coast. The Brighton Town Board voted Wednesday night against contracting with the Rochester Fire Department to take over fire calls in West Brighton but the board may take up the issue again next month, depending on whether it can come to an agreement with the West Brighton Fire Department. The unanimous vote came after a 5-hour public meeting in which residents of the West Brighton Fire District mounted a strong and spirited defense of their volunteer firefighters, the West Brighton Department. They urged the town to leave fire protection in their part of Brighton as it is. The town board and Supervisor William Mole looked to hire 4 full-time professional firefighters from the city to cover the West Brighton fire calls. This after a study last year found the volunteer company wasn't providing adequate response times, and some board members pointed out Wednesday night that the city fire trucks got to the recent fire at Woody's Sports Bar on West Henrietta Road before West Brighton did. The West Brighton Fire Department challenges the findings of the 2011 study. Members circulated petitions, and they forced a referendum August 28th on whether the fire district should be disbanded. If it is, the volunteer fire company could keep responding to West Brighton calls. That referendum goes forward regardless of this week's town board vote. Supervisor Mole criticized the West Brighton Fire Department for not working with the town on this issue. He said he'll put the contract with the city back on the agenda next month if the department doesn't start talking with him. There's been another homicide in the city of Rochester, this one late Wednesday night on the north side. City police say they were called to Wrenwood Street for a report of shots being fired, and there they found a 29-year-old city man lying in the front yard of a house. He'd been shot in the torso. He was pronounced dead a short time later at Rochester General Hospital. Police say they have a lot of questions and not many answers about what happened, and they have no arrests at this point. The victim's name had not yet been released. On this page, you'll find links to these and other stories, and at the bottom in that gray bar, links that you can use. You can directly post us news updates, sports, shout-outs to people you think deserve a salute, wedding announcements, anything of that sort. We want to know about it. Next news as it happens, updates when necessary, and I am Bud Lowell, CNC News.